We are continuing with the factors of production, factors that determine the demand for commodities. We are in our last lesson, we had talked about the three. Talked about the price of the commodity, consumer preference, seasonal factors, and we are now continuing with the income distribution. Said income distribution, if there is fair income distribution in the area, that is when people have enough money, their incomes are a bit not very high, but if the majority can have enough money, the demand for commodities will be high. But if the incomes are low, it is not well distributed, assuming an area has about 1 million, but in the million, that million is in the hands of about 5 people, demand will not be high. But if that 1 million can be distributed among the majority of the people, then you are going to see a high demand or higher demand. So when the income is fairly distributed, the demand will be high. If there is poor distribution of income, the demand is likely to be low. Don't forget, we are looking at the factors that determine the demand for commodities, which we put in the law that keeping other factors constant. So these are the other factors that must be kept constant as we state the law. Then the next one is government policy. Towards consumption of certain goods or certain commodities. Government has policies for its nation, and these policies usually affect demand. If the government wants to promote the consumption of a commodity, it will put up a policy that will encourage many people to when government puts up policies that are positive towards consumption of certain commodities, you will find the demand will be high for that commodity. But when government feels that the consumption of certain commodities may affect society, it will put up a policy that will affect the demand for that commodity. So whenever government looks at society, can put up a policy that will encourage the demand. How does it do it? Can be done either through subsidies that the government can subsidize, or there is government subsidies. What is the effect of subsidies? The government subsidies will definitely lower the price for the commodities, which the government feels that it should be consumed by the majority of the people. And that policy will encourage people to buy those commodities once the subsidies are put there. The opposite of the subsidy is taxation. If the government decides to tax either the incomes or the commodities, the prices definitely go up or the income will be reduced. Somehow that goes to some of the points we have mentioned, but taxation usually affects the demand of the commodities. So government policy, once it is unfavorable, we normally say unfavorable government policy discourages consumption. Favorable government policy encourages consumption of certain commodities. So that determines the price, the demand for the commodities that are demanded by the people. The next one, which is number 6 or factor 6, is factor 6 is price of other commodities. Prices of other commodities. We have now certain commodities that are in the market. When you go to the market, you don't find only one commodity. You will find a variety of commodities. Some of these commodities, they have categories. When you go to the market, you'll find that you have gone to buy tea. There is coffee, there is cocoa, and so on. So, these are substitutes. I said we have categories. These commodities you find in the market, they are either substitutes or complementary commodities. They work together. So, the price of these other commodities will determine the demand for the commodity which you are demanding. I've said we have two categories. We have the substitutes and you have the complementary goods. We have the substitutes and the complementary goods. Now we are going to divide, to look at them separately. That the price of the commodity of other commodities will determine the demand for commodity A. We are going to have, say, commodity A and commodity B. We are looking at the factors that are affecting commodity A. Commodity A is the one we are looking at, and how is its demand affected by the price of B. Now we are saying that B, the price of B will affect A depending on whether B is a substitute or it is a complementary commodity. That is the factor. When B is a substitute, what is a substitute? A substitute or substitutes are commodities which can be used in place of the other commodities. And here we are looking at the example I've given. We have tea, we have coffee, we have even chocolate. These are substitutes. If you are going to take tea, you are going to have a beverage, you can decide to take tea leaves, or coffee, or chocolate. Now, we are saying that the demand for A, if we are looking at substitutes, will be determined by the price of the substitute. Assuming A is tea, and we want to look at the effect of the price of B, which is coffee. How is the price of coffee affecting the demand of tea? When a consumer goes to the market, he was expecting to buy a packet of tea leaves at 500 shillings. He instead finds that in the market the price of this has gone up, that is for tea. It is, it has not gone up, it has remained 500, but he finds that the price of B has gone down, that is coffee. coffee has gone to 300. Because it has gone to 300 shillings per packet, this consumer is likely to leave tea and buys coffee whose price has gone down. So when we are stating this factor, we said in case the price of the substitute is lower than the price of the commodity in question, then the demand for the commodity is going to be low. People are going to shift to the substitutes. People are going to shift to the substitute because the price is going to be lower compared to the commodity in question. So the demand is likely to cause that demand to be low. So whenever the coffee has a lower price than tea, people are going to leave tea and go to coffee, so the demand will be affected. But if the price of coffee has gone up, then the demand for tea is going to go up, because compared to coffee, tea will look or will appear to be cheaper than coffee. So that's why we say the price of other commodities. However, it depends on the nature of the commodity. Are they substitutes or are they complementary commodities? So we have looked at the complementary commodity, the substitutes. If it is a substitute, you have to see the price of your substitute. Another example we can have for substitutes is soda, soft drink. When we have with the soda, we have Pepsi Cola and we have Coca-Cola. These are substitutes. If you went to the shop and you wanted to take a bottle of soda and the brand you want is Coke, then there is also Pepsi Cola. This is Coca-Cola. So you have Coke and Pepsi Cola. Now this tastes the same way. If you wanted to take Coke, but you found that either it's not there or something, for any reason, Coke is not there, usually the buyer will opt for Pepsi. Do you have Coke? No, I don't have Coke, but I have Pepsi. It's rare that the seller will tell you that I want Coke. I say Coke is not there. Can I give you Mirinda? No. He knows that he can only give you a substitute, and the substitute of Coca-Cola is Pepsi Cola. Now, if Coca-Cola is 1,000 a bottle, and even Pepsi Cola is 1,000, if the price of Coke goes up to 1,500, the consumers of Pepsi Cola will stop consuming Pepsi Cola and go to Coke. Why? Because they are substitutes. Once this price goes up, it means that the demand for this is going to go down and it is going to increase here. Why? Because it is a substitute. If this one went down to 800 per bottle and this one remained at 1,000, people are going to leave Coke and move to consumption of Pepsi Cola. So that's how the substitutes affect the demand for the commodity in question. Now we look at the other part, that is complementary. We said the factor, don't forget, the factor we are looking at is a factor that determines, that affects demand of a commodity. And we have said it is because of the price of other commodities. Because of the price of other commodities. And again we add on. But when you are looking at the price of these other commodities, look what the nature of the commodity. Are they substitutes? Are they complementary? What are complementary commodities? Complementary goods. Sometimes we call them complementary goods. Complementary goods are goods that are used together to satisfy a human need. In your introduction, you looked at what they call human wants and human needs, and human needs and wants. You have a need you want to satisfy, but you cannot use one commodity to satisfy that need. You need two commodities. They move together. You cannot say, let me go by only this. Usually we say, though it is in some of our communities, it is not seriously taken. But we know that once you take a bread, somebody who knows bread will also take butter. It goes with the butter. When you're going to use, your need is a journey, to move to a journey somewhere. You need a car, and this car needs petrol. You want to shoot someone, they are monkeys or whatever, you want to shoot them, you need a gun. This gun needs a bullet. These are complementary goods. They move together. They are used together to satisfy a human need. You want to drive? Yes, you need a car. And this car must have petrol. Now, if you are going to buy this car, the price of petrol will affect the demand for cars. In a country where prices for petrol are high, the demand for cars reduces. Why? Because someone knows, even if I buy the vehicle and I don't have the money to buy fuel, that is petrol, there is no way I will drive. So the demand, the price of petrol is going to affect the demand for cars. Once the price is high for the complementary good, the price, the demand for another commodity is going to go down. Once the price goes down, then you are going to see demand increasing, even for this commodity whose price has not changed. So you find you want car and petrol, bread and butter. You want to take chapati. If we know all of us chapati, to take chapati you need wheat flour plus cooking oil. If the price of wheat flour the price of cooking oil goes up, the demand for wheat flour will reduce. So those who want to take a chapati may not take the chapati because the demand for wheat flour has gone down. Why has it gone down? Because the price of cooking oil has gone up. So these are complementary goods, goods that are used together to satisfy a human need. And therefore, whenever the price of another commodity changes, there will be an effect on the price of the original commodity. If the price of wheat flour, cooking oil goes down, there will be increased demand for wheat flour, even if its price has not changed. If the price of cooking oil has gone down, people will see demand increasing. If it goes up, demand reducing. Why? Because they have to be used together. You want to make a chapati. If it's an area where they eat a lot of chapati, you'll find that the price, the demand for wheat flour has gone down. Those are the sellers in the shops. They will realize that the demand for wheat flour has gone down. Why has it gone down? Because the cooking oil price has gone up. People who are buying the wheat flour, 5 packets, 10 packets to make a chapati, because cooking oil is expensive, they are now buying 2 packets, 1 packet, or they even abandon because of the increase in the price of cooking oil. So those ones are called, complementary commodities. So it is very important as an economist to look at that, to know that these goods I'm dealing with, or I'm dealing in complementary goods. These ones are supplementary, substitutes. If they are substitutes, you know the effect. That the moment you increase the price of this, they will be substituted with a commodity whose price has not gone up. If they are complementary, look what that other commodity you are using the commodity with. There are many complementary goods that you can have as examples. Cement and sand. These are used together. There's no way you use sand unless there's cement. When the price of cement goes up, then these tippers, the elves, they will not have big business because cement price is up, fewer people are building, and therefore the demand is going to be affected. The next is consumer expectations. Consumer expectations. What do consumers expect? Consumer expectations. Consumer expectations. This is number 8. Consumer expectations. What do they expect of the prices in the future? This affects the demand for the commodity. Expectation, what we mean by consumer expectations, that when the consumers move to the market, they also study the economic environment, and they know that we are in this area, but there is a war that seems to be coming soon. And because there is a war coming soon, we expect commodities to get scarce, prices to rise. So when the consumers expect prices to rise in the future, the commodity will have high demand now. Very high demand now, because they expect that the prices, because of ABCD, it may not be war, it may be drought, it may be change in the environment, it may be change in the population, whatever. But as long as consumers have an expectation that the prices are likely to go up, then the demand of that commodity now is going to increase. If they expect that the prices in the future are going to reduce, the demand will reduce. So, consumer expectations. And what do we mean by this? Consumers expecting a rise in price leads to increased demand for now or currently. And the opposite, when the consumers expect prices to go down in the future, the demand will currently be low. That's what happens. Whenever you expect prices to go up in the future, you say, let us not wait for that time. They tend to buy more now. If you expect that the prices for sugar are likely to increase, you'll find people moving to shops to buy sugar. Someone who has been buying 2 kilograms is going to buy 5. Someone who has been buying 1 bag buys 5. Because he expects prices to increase in the future. So that affects the demand for the commodity because of the consumer expectations. Taking you back to remind you, he said the demand for commodity, by definition, he said 4 things that we have to keep in mind: willingness, ability, given time, given price. So that willingness and given time determines the consumer behavior. How is he going to behave in the market? He's behaving that way because he's willing, but the time he's looking at is making him to behave in such a way that he buys a lot now to avoid expensive or high prices in the future. And the economists, or every person in the economy, is an economist, I may say, directly or indirectly. Now what happens is that this person is going to look at what is in the future and changes his behavior in the market currently. Says, let me now buy, and I buy a lot because the prices are going to rise. Or let me buy less now because prices are going to go down. They are going to go down in the future. They study the environment, the situations which are existing, and they can tell that there is too much drought now. It means the food prices are going to go up. A wise person buys the food now to avoid those high prices in the future, so the demand increases. If they see that the season for maize has come, a lot of people are trying to harvest. Maize is still expensive. They say, no, let us be patient. Within 1 week or 2 weeks, we shall be buying, with this same money, we buy a lot of maize. So the demand is going to reduce now, waiting for that time when prices will be reduced. Then another one is availability, that is number 9, availability of availability. Number 9 is availability. We talk of availability of higher purchase. Availability of higher purchase. Yes, if you did e-commerce, higher purchase is a well-known terminology. But if you didn't do commerce, higher purchase can be defined as a situation where a commodity is sold to a consumer, and the consumer pays a deposit. Then he takes the commodity and continues to use it as he continuously pays in installments. That is a higher purchase. Whenever there is this system in a country or in the area, the demand for such commodities that are sold on higher purchase is going to increase. For example, if you realize that in your shop, people are not demanding the commodity, the radios, because they are expensive, what you do is to introduce higher purchase system and tell the consumer that this radio is 10,000 shillings. What you can do, deposit 2,000 shillings. We give you this radio and you pay every month. You are going to pay 1,000 per month. And you are going to do it for 1 year. Because higher purchase, finally, it is more expensive, but it's very convenient and increases demand. So you deposit 2,000 shillings, and every month you are paying 1,000 shillings. And you pay this for 10 months, or even 1 year, 12 months. That means at the end of the year, you are going to pay, that is 2,000 plus 11,000. 11,000 is the 11 months. Every month you are paying 1,000. So at the end of the day, this radio is going to cost 13,000. You pay cash, it is 10. It appears to be expensive. when the hire purchase system is used, deposit 2,000, take the radio, use it, every month you pay 1,000. It will look as if it is cheaper. Actually, it's not cheaper, but it's affordable. And this is going to increase the demand for the radios. People will be running up and down looking for these radios. Can I buy it on hire purchase? Can I pay this deposit? Because you are going to own a radio, not own, but possess a radio. You're going to possess a radio at a deposit of 2,000. You use the radio as you want, but every month you pay 1,000. So this hire purchase, in most cases, leads to increased demand for a commodity. If the country or region or a dealer has that system of hire purchase, it affects the demand. How? Positively, if it is there. You remove the hire purchase, the demand reduces. If you say now that was for only 1 month, you will find that the radios are not moving. People are not coming for the radios. Why? They have appeared they are going to be expensive at 10,000. So what you do, you introduce hire purchase, and then the demand is going to increase. Level of advertising is number 10. Level of advertising. In a free market economy, which you will look at soon or later, there is a lot of advertising. There's a lot of competition, and the way you can beat this competition is advertising, informing the public about your product. A product that has got good advertising will have a very high demand. That's why companies come up to advertise, and others advertise continuously. They don't stop to maintain the demand at a high level or to increase the level of demand. So the level of advertising for a commodity. When a commodity has high level of advertising, the demand is going to be high. When the commodity is not advertised, the demand is going to be low. Some people may not be aware of the existence of such commodities. Others may be aware, but they don't know how they use these commodities. So when you are advertising, in the advert you put there some explanation how the commodity benefits you, how it is used. Then you find people coming for those commodities. So commodities which are usually advertised, their demand tends to be higher than the commodities which are not advertised. So whenever you want demand to increase, you advertise. Inform the public about your product, what you are selling, how good is it, how is it used. By doing that, you are going to increase the level of demand for that commodity. Then, number 11 is what we call the income of the consumer. The income of the consumer. We are looking at this point more less related to what we said, the income distribution. But this time it is not distribution. The other time it was looking at number of people in the area. If they have good income, they can demand, the demand can be increased. If they don't have enough income, the demand will be low. This time we are looking at the consumer, you as an individual. What is the level of your income? By this point we say, when the consumer's income is high, when income is high, then you are going to have high demand. When income is low, you are going to have low demand. This one determines demand. When the income is high among the rich people, demand tends to be high. When he enters the market, he will buy this and that, and he buy in big quantities. Why? Because he has the income. If his income reduces, he comes back to the market and you see he's going to be buying less. Say, why is he buying less? He's buying less because of the income. His income has been reduced. And here we're talking about the real income, not the nominal income. That will be looked at in details in national income. But we are looking at your income. If you have been earning 40,000 or 400,000 per month, and your income is increased to 1 million, when you enter the market or the shop, what you have been demanding with this will be increased if you go in with this 1 million. So when your income increases, there is a tendency of your demand also to increase. You are going to be buying more commodities. You are going to be buying variety and quantity. You have been buying 1 kilogram of sugar. Now you are going to buy 5 kilograms of sugar. Why? Because the income has increased. After stating that, we put here a however. However, that will depend on the nature of the commodity. True, once income increases, the demand automatically increases. You ask someone, hey, you have been buying 1 kilogram of meat, now you are ordering 3. Hey, you don't know they increased our incomes. In Uganda, I think now when we go to the market or to the shops, to the shopping centers, the science people have higher demand for commodity, or they are buying more than the arts people. Why? The arts people, their incomes have remained the same. The science have doubled. So if 2 teachers go to the market or to the shop, and one teacher says, give me 3 kilograms of meat, and another one says 1 kilogram or less, then you know, you may not ask him, are you an arts teacher? He is actually showing what income does. The other is showing you that our income has increased. Ours did not change. So that brings in that factor. Income is very important. So sometimes we say, if you want demand for commodities to increase, there will be an argument. Increase the incomes of the workers. If the government is stuck with the producers not having enough demand, people will argue, economists will argue, please increase the incomes of the workers such that they can increase the demand for these industrial commodities which are being produced. We say yes, but there is a however. However, that increase in income will depend on the nature of the commodity in question. Not all commodities will have an increase in demand when someone's income increases. So we say that the income of the consumer, we say, however, this is determined by the nature of the commodity in question. And what do we mean by nature of commodity in question? We have three major types of commodities in economics. We categorize them into three categories. The first one is what we call a normal commodity or a normal good. We have the next one is called a necessity. And the third one is called inferior. These are three types of commodities or goods. Your income has increased. The demand is expected to increase. We say yes, it has to increase. But you put there, however, it depends on the nature of the commodity. What is the nature of the commodity? We normally say it is a normal good. So the normal good is the one which will conform to that factor. Normal good, these are goods whose demand increases when one's income increases. Those are the normal goods. These are goods whose demand increases as one's income increases. Necessities, these are commodities whose demand does not change even when one's income increases. Those are necessities. We are going to look at them a bit in the details. Inferior goods. Inferior goods are defined as goods whose income, whose demand reduces as one's income increases. Here, whose demand increases as one's income increases. And this one, no change. No change in the demand after change in the income. Those are the definitions for these goods. Normal goods, these are goods whose demand increases as one's income increases. So if you see demand for a commodity increasing because the income has increased, you categorize that one as normal good. It's very difficult to have a clear example of a normal good because it is subjective. It is subjective. What I may call normal may not be normal to another person. But normal goods, usually, you look at someone's income increasing and consider the demand for that commodity. Then you say, this is a normal good to him. Whereas inferior necessities, those ones, we don't have any change in the demand because of change in the income. These ones can have examples. You are not going to eat a lot of salt in your sauce because your income increased. The salt you take will be the same. The poor man is just on the taste. He say the sauce is enough. The salt is enough in the sauce. You will not say no, bring more salt because I'm not a poor man, I'm a rich man. So that one, the demand is constant. The demand is the same. Even if the income changes, the demand will not change. Even soap you are using, if you are going to bathe, you can only change the type of soap you are using, but the quantity will not change. If you have been using Geisha and you are using, say, a piece for a month, you are not going to say, now I'm going to use 5 pieces because my income increased. Unless you are just wasting, to show that you are wasting. But if you are not wasting, you are using the resources as an economist, as a rational economist, you are not going to use more soap because your income has increased. The soap you are using to bathe or to wash a shirt or a dress will be the same amount of soap you use, even when you become a billionaire. So that one will not change. So necessities, the demand does not change, even if your income changes. Even if your income increases, it will remain the same. Yes, someone will say, no, if you are poor, you are going to put one teaspoon in a cup of sugar. You are going to use 1 teaspoon. When you become rich, you use the 2. When you become again richer, you use 3. True, it can be true. That is at a level when you are, say, below a poverty line, you economize. But time comes when you have reached where you are supposed to be, you will not increase. You are economizing because you didn't have enough resources. But time comes when you are going to be constant. That is a necessity. And you're going to illustrate that one in the diagram. Whereas inferior goods, these are goods whose demand reduces as one's income increases. Look at the commodities that you are eating at home or what you are using at home. They are commodities that you are eating, you are consuming, you are using because of your low income. And every time you are praying hard that one day if God helps you and your income increases, you abandon them. You not use them anymore. You not eat them anymore. You are eating this because I'm poor. There's nothing I can do. I don't have the money. But I'm praying hard that God one time helps me. If my income goes to this level, those ones I will not eat again. Or your parents are telling you, or your relatives are telling you, I used to eat this when I was poor. But now that I have enough money, I will not eat them. They will never come back in my home. Those ones now we refer to them as inferior goods. The goods that you abandon when your income increases, they are categorized as inferior goods. Yes, sometimes you are too poor that you keep on increasing their amount up to a certain level. Now, after reaching that level, as the income increases, you are going to see a drop in the demand for those commodities. Those ones we call them inferior goods. Almost the same as normal goods. It may be very difficult to clearly show what an inferior good, because it is still subjective and sometimes it depends on society or culture or whatever. But sometimes it's very difficult to say this is an inferior good, because it may be an inferior good to you, but it is not inferior to another person. But you look at the behavior of that commodity in that society. These 3 commodities have a diagram. And in economics, I said, when we are starting price way, that diagrams are very common. And they are supposed to be used whenever they are necessary to be used. That's why on the exam they say, credit will be given to use of relevant illustrations. So, we have a diagram. You remember, we said in economics, our diagrams or curves are drawn against the 2 axes. That is the y-axis and the x. And we said, never forget to put 0 here, original point, where the y-axis starts and where the x-axis starts. Here I'm not going to plot using figures like we did in the demand schedule, demand curve. Here we're just illustrating the explanation that has been given. That for a normal commodity, you are going to have income here on the x-axis. We are going to have income. And here we are going to have quantity. How much you are going to consume when the income increases. We can have figures put there, but you can use the diagram for illustrating these three commodities. With a normal commodity, it is going to go up. Starts from 0, and as income increases, you are going to see that even demand increases. So we name this normal goods. Those are normal goods. Now, with the necessity, on the same diagram, without changing the diagram, we start from here. It first goes up, then it becomes straight. These are necessities. Necessities means what? That's what we have explained. These are commodities whose demand will not change even if your income increases. And the example I gave you was salt. You will not increase the consumption of salt because your income increased. You will not increase the use of soap because your income increased. And you can have even other examples. So here you see that it first increases. Before this point, you were poor, very poor, that you are economizing so much the salt. As long as you have got some little taste of salt, you say, eat. We don't have money, we are poor. Time comes when you reach this point and you now put in enough salt. You put in enough salt in your sauce. You don't say, I'm a very rich man. Let me put there 5 spoons of salt. No, you cannot do that. Why? Because it is a necessity. Because it is a necessity. So, necessities, the demand is like that. Then, inferior goods. These are goods, we said, whose demand reduces when one's income increases. If you have been consuming these inferior goods, let me say, you are a Muganda and your staple food, your important food you like most is matoke. You are eating cassava because you are poor. You don't have enough income. So that's why you are eating cassava. It means that when you are very poor, even the quantity of cassava will be less than what you should consume. That means as income increases, you increase the amount of cassava you are eating. You start with little because the income is very little. As it increases, you still consume that cassava, that is an inferior good, until a certain point. Now, once you reach that point, as income increases, you abandon the consumption of that cassava. Time even comes when you say, I don't want to see cassava in my house because I used to eat it when I was poor, when I didn't have money. Now that I have the money, I can afford the rice, I can afford macarons, I can afford the matoke. There is no more cassava in my house. I even don't want to see it. You know that that was an inferior good. If the times change again, and you find that the income is going down, you start abandoning the matoke, the macron, the rice, and so on, and you even go back to consume that cassava because the income has gone down. So these are the factors that determine the quantity demanded of a commodity. I have to take you back to remind you that when we are defining or stating the law of demand, we said keeping other factors constant. When the price is high, demand is low. When the price is low, demand is high. So these other factors, apart from price, are the ones which we keep constant. They are the ones we are referring to as keeping constant. So when we say keeping other factors constant, so at this moment I hope nobody is going to ask which other factors are you talking about. These are the other factors: income, necessity, income distribution, income of a person, preferences. Those are the other factors which must be kept constant so that the variable is only one, price as the variable. Then the law comes in. So those are the factors that determine demand of a commodity. At this moment, we are moving to another subheading, but still we are under price theory, and we are looking at demand side. I told you the price theory considers two things. One side, we have the consumers, where there is demand, and another side, we have the suppliers who are giving or producing the commodities. So these two are the ones who are in the market. One group is buying, another group is selling. So we are now looking at the buying side. What factors will affect the buying, what is demand, and so on. Now I've been mainly mentioning the demand for an individual demanding certain commodities and the factors that we have looked at. Now we want to expand a little bit more and look at what we call market demand. The market demand. The other, as I said, we are looking at the individual, and this individual is the one who has been in the market, and we have been looking at factors which will make him buy or not buy. But now we are looking at the what we call the market demand or aggregate demand. Now when you are looking at this demand, we are actually considering a number of people, not one person. Because one person may not be the one buying everything in a shop. They are different individuals. So when you look at market demand or aggregate demand, we say it is the total demand. It's the total demand from a number of consumers or a number of people who are demanding these commodities. That's a number of individuals. It is a collective demand. It is demand that is demand. Total demand of individuals, not one person, individuals or a group of individuals considered separately. Because if you don't say separately, that group may constitute one demand. And sometimes this market demand may be looking at a region. What is the demand of soda in central region? We are not looking at one individual, but various individuals demanding soda. What is the demand for bread? Demand for bread in this region, in this country? That is aggregate demand. Aggregate means a total when you are considering various variables, not only one, but a total, a number of people, a number of individuals. That is aggregate. You total up all the demand for this individual, demand for another individual, demand for this. When you total up, that is the aggregate demand. And I think that takes you to more or less a wider area looking at population. That is what we call aggregate demand. Now, market demand, that's the total demand of individuals, various individuals in the area for a certain commodity. When you say there is a demand, high demand of coffee, we are not looking at one family, one individual buying, but we are looking at various individuals buying. When you total up their demand, what is the stand of your demand for that commodity? And that's what economists look at. They normally look at the aggregate. Is there demand for coffee in this area? Is there demand for beans in this area? Is there demand for maize in this area? When they ask that question, they are not looking at an individual, but various individuals. Then they even come to the area, to the region. That's Western Uganda, there is a high demand for this. Eastern Uganda, there is high demand for this. That means they have now left individual demand. They are now looking at various people demanding that commodity for a big area. And that's where production, when you look at the supply side, the supply does not look at only one individual. People go to produce knowing that there are various buyers who are demanding those commodities. Aggregate demand has, in an economy, as we have said, aggregate demand, we normally abbreviate it as that. Aggregate demand, when you are looking at it in a big area, in an economy, we normally look at these factors, these initials. Aggregate demand is usually looking, we mainly look at the C plus I plus G. All these are people or individuals that are buying commodities, but buying for different reasons. C stands for all the demand for different commodities which is intended for consumption. When you buy food in your home, when you buy things to drink or whatever to use, that is consumption. So we are looking at the consumption in that place. What is the demand that is which constitutes consumption? What is the demand which this is consumption? This one is investment. And this is government expenditure on consumption. That is the demand, aggregate demand. We are demanding commodities in a region, in a country, in an area. Much of what we are demanding is for consumption. We look at that demand. Is the nature of demand in this place? Is it for consumption, for investment? Is it government expenditure? So this G is actually looking at the expenditure on consumables, things that we are consuming. That is aggregate demand. How much are they demanding as government, as individuals? What is the nature of this demand? Is it for consumption? Is it for investment? Is it for government commodities? So that's what we call aggregate demand. It is wider. It covers, actually, when you talk of aggregate demand, you are talking about the system or the department. Is it a department? No. It is a category of economics, and that is macro. It has gone beyond the smaller unit. It is now it's a wider area. That's what we call aggregate. You are totaling up different expenditures, which are put on consumption. So that is what we call aggregate demand. We have factors also which determine aggregate demand. Some of them may look similar to what we have looked at as the factors that determine demand. The other ones were general. Now these ones determine aggregate demand. Factors which determine aggregate demand. So we have factors. We have factors which determine aggregate demand. We have various factors which determine aggregate demand. Some of them, as I said, are going to appear almost similar to those ones of individual demand, but the explanation will be showing that these ones are on aggregate, not on small individual. So the first one is the aggregate demand is determined by the general price level. General price level of commodities. Is there demand for this and this and this? Yes. In this region? Yes. Why is it there? Because of the low general price level, which is low. If a country is experiencing inflation, the demand may go down because the general price level is high. So demand for commodities may go down. So aggregate demand will be affected because of the general price level of various commodities in the area or in the country. There's also the factor of income, the level of income distribution. So the first one we have said, it is the general price level. Number two, the income distribution in the country or in the area. That is, general price level determines the aggregate demand of the country or of the area. Number two, we have said the distribution, income distribution in the economy. Income distribution in the economy or in the country determines the aggregate demand. Then another one which determines aggregate demand for the commodities is the availability of the goods and services, or availability let me use the commodities, but we said commodities is the same as goods and services. When you talk of commodities, you have combined both. And I still remind you, we don't say goods and commodities or services and commodities. The moment you mention commodities, you have combined both goods and services. If you want only to mention goods, just say of goods. If you want both goods and services or commodities, combine both. Then, so the availability of commodities in the country. When the commodities are available, the demand will be higher. In fact, there is a belief that demand creates a supply. There is that belief that once the demand is there, the people will come up to produce the commodities which people are demanding. So there is that economic assumption, or it is even true that when there is demand, people will come out to produce what is being demanded. People will express the demand and production will be there. So the availability of goods and services will determine the demand. There are certain things that will start demanding because they have been produced, because they are now available. You even don't know how you started buying them, but you buy them now because they are on market. They have been put on the market. So the demand will be increasing, or they will reduce because they are not there. They are not buying them because they are not seeing them. So sometimes we will buy commodities because of that. The seasons, there is a seasons factor. Demand is affected by the seasonal factors. Some commodities tend to have increased demand because of the season. We mentioned, we talked about that a bit when you are looking at the factors for individuals. Some commodities are demanded during certain seasons. When it's coming to Christmas, the demand for Christmas items is going to be very high. And once Christmas goes, the demand disappears. And people, if you continue selling your Christmas commodities in January, people will either call you mad or confused, or you don't know what you are doing. Because if you are moving around selling Christmas cards in January, people will be wondering what is happening to you. Some things come on a season, and the aggregate demand, the demand goes around. Everybody is demanding those goods. Every house where you reach, they are demanding those commodities because they belong to that season. They are supposed to be used for that season. As I mentioned earlier, when, like Uganda, we have various universities, but they tend to have most of their graduations in a given time period. 2 months or 3, every university is graduating. You have high demand for gowns, high demand for graduation cakes, what? But when the season ends and you open up a shop selling gowns, you wonder what you are doing because the season has ended. So aggregate demand is sometimes determined by the season. It is usually very high when the season is on, and it goes down when the season ends. So that is a factor. Then another one is also government policy. Government policy I say when the government wants to encourage the consumption of certain commodities and it puts up a policy that will encourage others or many people to buy the commodities, the demand will be high. There's an example which we normally give, that when government put up a policy that every child must attend school in the primary, that is UPE, the demand for government schools increased in primary. Everybody now goes to school, and so everybody wants to attend because it's a government policy. But if we get another government says, if you want to go to school, you can go, it's up to you. You find many people leaving the schools because government policy doesn't seem to encourage the demand for this primary education. So sometimes government policy determines the demand, aggregate demand for certain commodities. If it is negative, then the demand is going to be low. If it is positive, the demand is going to be very high. So that is a very important factor in determining the aggregate demand. Then another one is the population size of the country or area. In most cases, producers go where there is a big population. Commodities will sell, even sellers will go where there is a big population. When there is a big population, you know that the people will be able to purchase your commodities. So the demand tends to be high, even in the schools where people go. Once the school has a big population, the demand for various items in that school, which are used by the students, will be high. The books, the eats, the pens, all these will have a high demand because the population is big. If the school has 5 students, don't expect the demand to be high. If you carry a whole basket of pancakes, say I'm taking to school where there are 5 students, then they say this man or woman is mad, doesn't know what he's doing. There are only a few people, but she's carrying a very big basket. And you don't complain if you're a seller that things were not bought. What was the population? What demand did you expect in that area where population is very small? So population size determines so much the aggregate demand. It is very important to look at that. Then there is monetary policy. In the country or of the country. Monetary policy of the country. Monetary policy is an area which will be covered extensively under Managed Banking. But monetary policy, we have 2 major policies in this monetary policy. The policies are 2, but the tools are different. There are several, but the policies are 2. Either we have what we call contractionist monetary policy or expansionist monetary policy. We have what we call monetary policy, we have contractionist, and expansionist. Expansionist monetary policy. These 2 affect the level of demand. What do they mean? Contractionist monetary policy. These are usually they originate from the central bank. Central bank is the one which puts up these policies. Now, contractionist means the government, the central bank wants to reduce money from the people. There are tools that are used to reduce money from the people, where people will say money is scarce, money is not seen. It is the central bank which uses some tools, if the policy is contractionist, to see that money reduces in circulation, that people don't have a lot of money in circulation. And once you don't have money, you don't have a purchasing power. You don't demand. Demand will depend on the money you have. That is what you have in the pocket. So contractionist means reduce money from people. Whereas this one means increase money to the people. Now, if it is contractionist, it means you are reducing money from the people. That means demand is going to be affected. People will not have money to purchase the commodities. So, contractionist monetary policy reduces aggregate demand, and expansionist monetary policy increases aggregate demand. So when government wants people to get money, to have money, I said these are the policies, but within the policies there are tools that you use to make sure that money comes to the people or money moves away from the people. Once you reduce money from the people, it means that the demand is going to be affected. That's why when you go to some of these shops, some of the markets, they say, sales are very low. And they have the word they normally mention. People don't have money. Why are they saying they don't have money? They don't see them buying. Every buyer comes crying. Hey, money is not there. The problem is money. Your commodities are very good, but I don't have the money. That means there are policies. These are government policies that have affected the aggregate demand. So aggregate demand is sometimes caused by increased, affected by contractionist monetary policy or expansionist monetary policy. The last one we are looking at is the government expenditure. That one looks a little bit similar. People will say, but government and central bank, they are the same. Yes, but each one is using its different tool. Government expenditure determines aggregate demand. How? You normally know that a major source of money in circulation is government expenditure. When government is not spending, does government spend? Yes. It buys commodities which it uses, it buys stationery, fuel, pays salaries, engages in development. So whenever government spends, it puts money in circulation and the people will get the money. That one is government expenditure. Some scholars will call it fiscal policy. The other is monetary policy. This is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy determining aggregate demand. How? This is government expenditure and possibly taxation. If government reduces expenditure, there will be less money in circulation. If government increases expenditure, reduces expenditure and taxes, or does not affect expenditure but over taxes, money will reduce in circulation. That's why I call it fiscal policy. Policy that will reduce money in circulation through government taxation and government expenditure. But here we are looking more at the aggregate demand. How will it affect the demand? Government expenditure. We want government to spend. there's a time when you find that things are not moving in the country, the economy. People are not buying. The demand is low. Why? Government is not spending. Is not paying creditors, debtors. Is not paying salaries on time. That means the demand will reduce. But when government opens up and starts spending, you see people getting money, demand increasing, and then you see the economy changing, moving from what it has been. So those are the factors that determine, that affect, that influence the aggregate demand. We are still on price theory, and we are still looking at demand. Demand is what we are still continuing with. We are going now for another area, reasons why people demand commodities.